Welcome to Wine Wanderings. Today, my guest is Dr. Liz Thach, Master of Wine, author, and consultant. Liz and I first met at the Women in Wine Symposium in Napa Valley. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Tricia.
I want to give my readers a little background on you first. Liz Thach is an award-winning author and educator specializing in wine business strategy, marketing, leadership, and the wine lifestyle. Liz has visited several major wine regions around the world, visiting actually more than 50 countries. Impressive. Liz worked for more than 10 years as an HR executive in Fortune 500 companies before transitioning to Sonoma State University in 2000 to teach management and wine business classes. She has presented at more than 100 conferences, published 9 books and over 200 articles, and now is teaching part-time at Sonoma State. Liz was the first woman in California and only the 7th in the US to become a Master of Wine. She also holds a Ph.D. from A&M, Texas A&M. I'm in Texas, so we just say A&M. Welcome, Liz, to Wine Wanderings.
Thanks again. A pleasure to be here.
So tell us, Liz, how you first came to teach about wine business from working as an executive in HR from Fortune 100 companies. What was that transition about?
Yeah, that was a big transition. But wine has always been my passion. In fact, I was in college in California, and a friend took me to Napa Valley for my birthday, and I fell in love, right then and there. And so I started taking classes in wine tasting and traveling to wine regions at a very early age. And then my husband got interested in it too. So even we lived in Houston for 10 years, and I took lots of wine classes in Houston. And so anyway, it was always a hobby and a passion. I never thought it would be a career. But then, fate, jumps in and changes things for you. So ended up as an executive, I was encouraged to go back and get my Ph.D. in human resource development, and then came back to work again. But then eventually ended up seeing a job as a professor of human resources and teaching introduction to wine business. And so all my studying and traveling paid off, and I started doing wine business and wine tasting at Sonoma State University in the year 2000, and just retired this year, but still teach there part-time. So that's sort of how it happened. When I moved to Sonoma too, I also put in a hobby vineyard. So I took a lot of viticulture and winemaking classes, so I make a little wine too. So it started out as just a passion, and then it became a job. And then when I started teaching wine business, there were no books. There were no textbooks on wine business. So 3 years later, I ended up writing the first wine business textbook just because I needed something for my students. And it was an edited book. So I called upon all these experts in the industry to send some chapters in. And that's sort of how it started with writing all the wine business books.
Well, that's really impressive and fun. And I'm a software executive, so I understand this passion and transition thing. But I have to tell the readers that every year you put out the 10 hot trends for this year, 2021, for the US wine market. It's my much dog-eared one of my favorite annual reports. So when I read that, Liz, I was especially interested in 3 things: the flavored and the low calorie or no low wines, the premiumization of wine. And during the pandemic, people wanted to treat themselves and were upscaling their buying, I guess. And then sparkling, will it peak again as people celebrate the opening? And any other of the trends that you think are notable right now?
Trish, those are all great questions. And what's exciting for me is that those top trends that you just mentioned have continued and are pretty strong this year. So for example, I would say the better for you category, also called no or low alcohol wine, or better for you. People are very health conscious, so they're deciding they still want to drink wine, but they are looking for lower alcohol and lower calories. So that is booming. I can't imagine all the new brands that have come out in just the last 6 months. There are so many of them. There was just another one announced today. So the category is hot. And the other one that's really, really hot is wine cocktails, which is sort of the opposite extreme. We're just going to have fun with wine. We're going to have wine seltzers and wine sparklers and wine spritzers and add fruit to the wine and make fruscato wine and, all these kinds of things that are fun with wine. Agave wine fits into this category. And of course, these ones are not necessarily low cal. They're just fun and they're fruity and they're usually a little sweet. And that is booming too. And what's great about both of these two new categories in wine is it's bringing new people into wine. So a lot of younger consumers are now adopting wine, which is before it was more, oftentimes people waited till their 30s, but now we're having a lot more people in their 20s, Gen Z, as well as younger millennials. And so that's good for the wine industry. So those two trends are just booming right now, and I think they're going to continue. The third one you asked about was sparkling. So I would have to say sparkling and rosé, because those are both really hot, and especially sparkling rosé. That one's really hot right now. I just looked at some numbers last week with John Moramarco, who owns BW166. It's a market research firm, and he had tracked rosé over the last 10 years in the US market, and it literally grew 1,400% increase. So, I mean, that's how popular rosé has gotten. And then when you add sparkling rosé to that, because Prosecco just came out with pink Prosecco this year, and there's lots of others as well. So both of those categories are getting hotter. Now, during the pandemic, sparkling wine sales went down, which is understandable because people were not celebrating, especially in March, April, May, they cratered, and champagne was really, really hurting. And then it sort of came back up a little bit as people sort of felt better in the summer. And then remember, we had the second or third wave and it crashed again, and it just wasn't good. But now people are really celebrating. They say that by the end of the year, we're going to party like it's 1999 or the roaring 20s again or something, or the end of World War II. There's all these different analogies that the US market will really start partying. And I think that that's true as we're coming out of the pandemic now. It's not over yet, but there's a lot more hope. And so people want to celebrate. And so all the champagne and sparkling houses I talk to, they say sales are way up already.
I got one as a gift last week, and as we all are traveling too, I just got back from the Washington wine country. We're all drinking a lot more wine out there as well. So I'm really happy about sparkling's comeback. So speaking of wines, Liz, what are your go-to weekly, monthly, and special occasion wines?
I say weekly is Sauvignon Blanc. I love a nice crisp, cool glass of Sauvignon Blanc, in the evening or while I'm cooking dinner. And then, other weekly, it depends on what I'm eating. Like I have a tendency to drink a lot of Pinot Noir, but sometimes it's rosé or even sparkling. My husband and I had a sparkling with dinner the other night. We were having a seafood, and we just decided to stay with bubbles through the whole meal, which was lovely. And then special wines for me, I will never pass up a big, beautiful Napa Cab. And some of those are, pretty expensive. And I just think they're just lush and velvety, and they're like a treat. Same with Bordeaux, the really, really high-end Bordeaux's are a special treat for me. And vintage champagne.
Oh, I'm with you on all of those, actually. Especially like a high-end Schaefer Hillside Select Cab from Napa, or a Saint Emilion. I like the Right Bank French. So those would be my special occasion as well. So we're on the same path, Liz. So I have to conclude our interview with asking you about your writing. I know you're writing for Forbes now, but also your novel writing. I read one of your novels. And are there any new in the works or any other books that you have on the plans?
I would love to get back into my novel writing. I write, as you know, under a pen name, not my own name, with a friend of mine, and we write wine mysteries. And we keep talking about it, but right now we're just both too busy. But I hope so. That's fun writing. Right now, the newest book that I'm writing with a colleague is on virtual wine tourism. Because as you know, during the pandemic, virtual tours, virtual tasting just took off, not just in the US, but all over the world. So we're going to look at a book on global virtual wine tasting, what works, what doesn't, and what's next in that, because it's not going to go away. Now that people have learned that they can taste wine with a winemaker in Greece or, Italy or South America or Brazil, whatever, people are going to want to continue doing that because it was exciting and it helps them, travel from their armchair or their desktop and taste wine as well. So I think that's an exciting topic for me to be writing about.
Great. Well, Liz, thank you for joining us on Wine Wanderings. I look forward to talking with you again soon.
Tricia, it's great seeing you. You look fabulous, and I hope we get to taste some wine together again soon.